Welcome to another episode of You Know What It Is, Ball at All Costs podcast. And we're back, and this is our biggest panel for a while. So welcome one and all. Welcome. We have a special guest with us this week, Coach Brandon, from the notorious, the infamous, the team we want to get on, but they're hiding from us. But Coach Brandon has come. Lambbeath Tigers coach for a number of years. Coach Brandon, welcome.
Thank you for having me, man. Honestly, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've caught any of our shows, but we are a bit East London Essex heavy. Blame Deji for that. He believes East London Essex rules the world, rules the ecosystem when it comes to grassroots football in the southeast.
Straight up and down.
Don't know about that one.
I mean, look, I'll be real, Brandon. And look, it's like having a celebrity here, so it's a pleasure for you to be here. But when it's East versus South on this football thing, it is very, very long for them Southerners. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's long for you lot. So bring your whole club to the Echo League and let's get going.
We can plan it. I'm ready.
You know, South Londoners don't ever back down.
Never.
And Lambbeath Tigers have come to a couple tournaments and done what they needed to do. I'm not going to lie.
I know that exactly. Hence why the way that I just called Brandon out, this game has to happen.
Definitely. It's going to happen.
You can't let me say what I just said and not come to see what it's like down here in sunny Essex. Do you know what I'm saying? So we're ready. Come, bring the people them. You know, I quoted something the other day just to make sure that this game happens. I don't want to say it, but I reckon that Essex is more London than the Londoners. Yeah. I'm going to let that hang. But yes, Brandon, let's go. No, I'm joking. I'm just joking.
Listen, we've started with a riot. Listen, if you're new to this show, then shame on you. But one of the themes is Essex versus South, the cages, Echo League versus South Kent League. Like, listen, we're just happy to have you guys represent. We've had Ballon d'Or on, but no shade to Ballon d'Or. I think Lambbeath Tigers are probably part of the establishment when it comes to South London football. And I've seen you about. Some of us here have had children play with you guys and won trophies. So credit where credit's due. You guys are doing your thing. We do want you on as a club, as a whole. Dr. David and Jamal, I'm calling you out. But we've got you and we're appreciative of you. And you're going to help us talk about a subject that's dear to our heart today. And we're talking about, are we protecting players or protecting results? And we'll come on to that in a second. But as is the norm on this show, we do our check-ins, and check-ins are really important for our health and for all men on this show. Women are important, but we need to check on our men's health. So somebody who's not been on a pod for about, I'm not counting, aka just a dad, Daniel, about 4 months now, I think. How are you doing?
I'm good. Life has been living, guys. Sundays are a bit of a struggle for me at the moment, but I'm here. I have to show up for this episode. It's in a week. I had no excuse not to be here, to be fair. I'm here with my brothers, and let's go.
Good. And Tom, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing well, mate. Doing well. Life's crazy. It's just non-stop. You know, eldest with his stuff, and obviously the journey with my youngest now that he's sort of transformed from being a striker to a goalkeeper. All within the last 6 months brings its challenges. You can obviously relate to that, Dan. Never been so nervous watching kids football when your son's in goal. It's quite a horrific feeling, really. But no, everything's good. And OC's part of the Billericay Massive now. So we get to see each other at the weekends as well.
Yes, indeed. So we were on the grass this evening. It was nice training session for the boys. In terms of me, I'm good. Great to have Brandon on. I'm sure you've had many DMs, but we chopped it up on a DM about a year or so ago. I asked you for a bit of advice, and you were forthcoming, so I appreciate that. And you know what? All the years I've known Tom since probably year 7. And I've been meaning to say this to you, Tom, but I just haven't in the years that we've been in this football scene since we've become reacquainted. But there was a time when your school come to Abs Cross School, yeah, down at Lane, rugby in year 8, yeah. And I don't know if you were, what's the word? I don't know if you were the ideal specimen of an athlete, but you used to play rugby, didn't you? You used to play rugby.
I was.
Go on.
I was as wide as I was tall. I looked like Goldberg out of Mighty Ducks. So I basically just used to, it was an easy victory, really, if anyone was in front of me.
Do you know what it is? Yeah, I was in my loft earlier on today. I've had to clear my loft out, and I've bought something out of my loft, and my arm is in bits, my shoulder's in bits, yeah. And it reminded me of a cold winter afternoon when I had Tom Bassett running at me. No one else wanted to try and tackle him, and I just had to go for it. Do you know what I mean? And I went for it, and my shoulder feels like it did back then. Like, you absolutely ruined me, innit? So I just had to share that one, innit, for a reminder for the audience.
Thanks, mate. Them days scarred me from a physical standpoint, but we don't bring any pictures up, will you?
Next week, OC, Tom just asked you to bring a picture, I think. How are you doing, Dej? You were feeling a bit under the weather earlier this week. Degenio, Van Helsing, Deji Spurs, aka the Bundler.
Yes. I was someone we were talking about backstage, and thank you for asking, Andrew. I was either close to the pearly gates or on the brinks of going into Hades. So I don't know which one's which because I was so incoherent on Sunday.
Man flu then, yeah?
Yeah, lick me down, but me back. And delighted to be back. I'm just cold, man. I'm just cold, and it's wet and it's miserable, and I just need it to get to March and spring and my birthday real quick. That's all I'm looking forward to. Games are getting cancelled left, right, and centre as well, so that didn't help either. Do you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'm just looking forward and looking ahead.
Okay, I will remind you, it has snowed in April once in this country. Just be warned. Last but not least, Coach Brandon, the man who comes with such a reputation. I was hearing about you 4 years ago, and I didn't even know you. OC said he's been DMing you. Tom's been speaking to you. You're a man with a reputation. You're on Instagram. You're on the grass. You're out there doing your thing. You've taken under 7s to an elusive victory at the ESF tournament and played some great football there, I'm sure. How are you doing?
Sorry.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I need Brandy's
You need to add. Okay, go for it.
Also, not yet, but soon to be. I think should be an acclaimed author.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
and that also. It's called Unstoppable Team.
Okay. And where are you in that process?
It's going well. I think the next step for me and my book is to get out in schools. Obviously, is out in the local community and everything. But I think the next step is getting out into schools and just showing the message where if you have the right mentality, you can do anything you want.
Okay,
I think a lot of kids now need to understand that. Not even kids as well, adults as well. To understand that if you put your head down, it doesn't matter if you get rejected or anything. If you put your head down, the sky's the limit.
Oh, brilliant! So that's called Unstoppable Team.
Yes, and it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon right now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Guys, listen. I'm going to ask you a few things. Everybody listening, you know the first one is going to be to subscribe, to hit that notification, to hit a like and leave a comment. I know you will want to leave a comment on this show once we get into it. And also, if you listen on the audio feed, please leave a like and a review. And the last thing I'm going to ask you to do right now is to go onto Amazon right now and don't even add, buy now Unstoppable Team. by Coach Brandon.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I can hear you clicking right now. I'm going to go and buy it as well. Let's support Coach Brandon doing his thing out here, sharing the knowledge. And guys, listen, we're going to get into the show. It's 10 minutes in and we haven't spoken a bean about football properly yet. This is a subject that is close to a few of our hearts. I would say definitely Tom, definitely DeGenio, and Dan, aka Just a Dad. And we're talking about smaller players. We've touched on it a couple of times. But I think Tom brought to our attention the biobanding that some academies are doing. And I just want to read what Google AI gave me for biobanding in football. It's a method of grouping players by their biological maturity growth stage instead of their chronological age, date of birth, of course, to create a more level playing field, ensuring early developers aren't physically dominant and late developers aren't held back, which promotes balanced development in technical, tactical, and physical skills, reduces injury risk, and provides fairer talent evaluation by controlling for physical disparities. This method is used in academies like AFC Bournemouth and Brentford FC, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And it allows coaches to see players' true abilities by removing physical advantages, disadvantages, challenging all players appropriately. There is more. I urge you to look at that yourself. But with that in mind, it raised some questions. And I guess the first question there is, and I'm going to direct this to Tom, as you brought this to our attention. Does protecting smaller players delay their development? And I guess does shielding them through biobanding or altered environments help, or does it delay exposure to the real demands of the game? AKA, do you agree, I guess, with biobanding and artificial environments for small players?
So for me first, I kind of, really struggle with the concept, and there's multiple reasons why I struggle with it. But I think ultimately, in the real world, in real life, when we play football, you have to find ways to ultimately progress within our within this industry. If people want to make it, and ultimately what I see is that if you are holding people back and you're allowing others that maybe are more physically developed and you're progressing them, what's happening to that gap? So is that gap getting greater? And what I kind of struggle with is that why is it an issue to not help someone who's maybe less physically dominant, to create them and build them up in terms of confidence in an environment where they can thrive in a more dominant game? If they're bigger, they're stronger, they're quicker. I understand there's pros and cons for it, but I just worry that the gap ultimately just keeps getting bigger, and that's my issue. And I look at previous people that have made it at top end professional football. Were they protected, or were they given guidance? Were they, was an arm around them in terms of, patient? Doesn't matter if you make mistakes. We're going to stick with you. We know that you've got something. We're going to expose you to a bigger pitch. We're going to expose you to the bigger format. Why do we have to hold back the smaller boys playing in smaller formats? So there's, it's something that's sort of dear to my heart. I see it more and more now that, ultimately the game is worshipping physical talent.
The game in England or the game in the world?
I would say the game in England is worshipping physical talent. And if, at some point, it wouldn't surprise me if we had 11 people looking like The Rock playing football. That feels like the way it's going. And I speak to a lot of people within the industry that have either made it at top level, that are friends that have played in the Premier League, and I just honestly feel that for a smaller, more technically gifted player, you may have to consider European options to really get what you deserve out of football, because I don't think that the UK model at the moment is allowing, they talk about patience, but I don't really see that supportive network. That's my humble opinion from what I'm seeing, and that's not strictly academy football. I see that in grassroots football as well.
Okay, I'm going to hold you there. I know Dan wants to jump in, but Coach Brandon is a guest, and he was nodding away from the second Tom started speaking. So I'm going to let him jump in now, and then Dan, just follow straight through, please.
I totally agree with everything regarding the small players. And if you look at the European players, what's the best team that has ever played? My opinion is the Spain team of 2010. They had obviously the Iniesta, the Xavi, the David Silvas, and they were all small. And they've obviously become world-class players. But if you come to England, we all look at now the bigger players, and all the smaller players are not getting looking. For example, this is my obviously opinion is Adam Wharton's. He should be in the England squad and playing every week. But you put someone who's Elliot Anderson, who's 6 foot plus, in front of him. So what are we doing with Wharton then? But if Wharton was Spanish, he'll be playing that Spanish squad. So as a coach, and I've seen it in grassroots as well, 11-a-side football, everyone's 6 foot plus. A player that's maybe 5'6" doesn't come on. Why doesn't come on? Because it's a physical game. But you never know, that player could unlock that by maybe moving the ball quicker, trying to break a line, where the more physical players are always trying to go for a battle. But sometimes you might not need that. You might need a technical player who can break a line, who can create space by his movement and unlock the game. So yes, this country is going. I always say this. I don't see England winning the World Cup, and that's the reason why.
Okay, that is another topic that we're going to touch on a bit later on. We've touched on it once, and we're going to touch on that again. I can't say I disagree with your points there. I just wonder if there's a slight South London bias with Adam Wharton. Talking about the North and South thing. I'm only joking. I definitely think Adam Wharton's a player, and he does break lines with his passing from deep. So good shout there. Dan, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, again, what you're saying, I think in this, beyond football, we're too protective of things with players. That's a problem. The key word is always protecting. When we were younger playing football, if you were small, you had to work it out. Yeah? In life, you can't run away from challenges. And this is the problem is, and I think the smaller players possess that slightly better IQ at times because they work it out. They can't get into battles. They have to figure out other reasons to get solutions, beat the player, out you muscle someone. And like Brandon said, get into battles. The physical players know that they can get into battles and they'll win a lot of the times. Where the smaller players think, I can't do that. I need to move the ball quick. I need to find different angles. I need to pass and move. And I think until coaches across from grassroots upwards realize that this is not going to change, the mindset's going to be the same way until whatever. But again, life goes in cycles. Like Brandon said, it went back in 2010. The small Spanish players, they were ruling the world. Wenger went for it. Arsenal, club names, we know. Yeah, back at our team back in the day went for small players, tiki-taka players that can move the ball quickly. I think it's in cycles. In 6-5 years, unfortunately for our boys at this stage, we're not in that cycle, but it'll go around again where the small players will come into it, and it will be about all these great small players, how great they are, how smart they are, how to move the ball. I think it's about cycles of life. And unfortunately, in this pod and our panel here, our boys are in a cycle where the profile, the attributes are how strong you are, how quick you are, how fast you can run, how high you can jump. And it's just one of them things. And obviously, I've experienced it with Kay. Like, it's always, oh, how tall is he? Yeah. And for him at this moment, he hasn't got that growth spurt yet. So I was just life. We just deal with it. And I guess one day we'll look back at this pod and say, we're right, and the cycle's come around now, and the smaller players are doing what I need to do.
Okay. No. Listen, I think good points. I guess if I wanted to paint a counter argument, I don't really have one. But I guess, is there an inverse here with big players playing up? Like, should that be stopped, or is that acceptable if we're saying small players shouldn't play down? Or not even playing down, but playing in their birth or size?
Yeah, range. Sorry, I had to unmute just to kind of charge in. It's got, football should be, and I'm looking at everyone on the panel. We know when we were growing up, football was about the game, the purity of the game. Size has nothing to do with whether you can kick ball. Can you kick ball is the first question, yes or no. Size should be like a byproduct. Even, dare I say, a bonus. I agree with Brandon. We used to, at the beginning of this podcast, ask the question, will England ever win the World Cup? If we continue down this big is better, big is best and strong, we're not going to win the World Cup. I'm not saying that big players can't play ball. But what I am saying is, when you know that there are smaller players in the grassroots that are better than the players that they're picking up, then you're missing out on top talent. You're missing out on a potential Bernardo Silva. You're missing out on a potential Grealish or whatever, because you're not pumping, or you're not putting the time into it. And I think where I feel like the game is kind of let me down is this belief that we can sort that out, and they don't leave room for the Jorginhos. They don't leave room for the natural Joga Benita, whatever you want to call it, talent to come through. And that's what really gets on my nerves. I have to tell my son, who gets overlooked simply because of his height, don't worry about that other youth there, because you know, if it comes one-on-one, you know who's the better player. Simple. It's as simple. And that's what it should be down to, not size. So that was my rant.
So it's Jorginho. You told Jorginho they should be looking out for Jorginho, yeah?
Honestly, I mean, it's a travesty that I dislocated my arm. I reckon I would have been a Kocha reincarnated. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, the skills was there, yeah. And it needs to, and I feel like a lot of that is gone. You know, this is for another pod, but
no. I think you're right, though. I think you're right. With the Okocha's a great example. I'm glad you mentioned his name, because Okocha was doing stuff that I don't know if you would be encouraged to do now. And it's typically a smaller player that's going to be doing that type of stuff because of that coordination and that balance. So I think that's a good point. I'm going to let OC speak. I've got something else I want to say on it, but I see OC's taking himself off mute.
I suppose my question is obviously football, the game's a game, and like you say, like, can you kick ball is the number one factor. For a smaller player, is there a prerequisite for that smaller player to be able to be, what's the word, tenacious and intense and front foot? Does that need to be the case, or are we suggesting that, listen, if they can play ball, if they're a bit of a metronome, they can pass the ball around, they can like find pockets, should we be caring for them? Because to my mind, the academy system now, certainly in like the foundation phase, like, you need to be front foot aggressive. Like, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for big, powerful players. But if you're small, you need to have, I suppose, a superpower. A lot of that is the explosive pace. Or if not, you need to have that technical ability, but you'll need to be super, super tenacious as well. So I almost think, certainly, the smaller players are being overlooked. But if you're not front foot, you don't have that aggression, again, you're being overlooked, regardless of if you're tall or small. But sorry, let me just frame that again. So the question, do you think that? Let me ask a question: are your boys front foot tenacious, or are they a bit more technical? Because my boy's tall. My boy's tall, so he's on the other side of the fence here.
But before you answer that question, can I just touch on something, OC? I'm just trying to look for it here, but you touched on superpower, and we did run a poll early in the week, and a few people voted, and we asked the question: if your son is small, or if you have a small player, which superpower do they need the most to make it? And I think one was speed, the other one was IQ. I think the third one was technical ability, and then there was an open spot for another choice. And does anyone want to hazard a guess which one topped the poll?
Me personally, I'll probably go with IQ, because if you think 2 steps ahead of someone, then that goes down to speed as well.
Okay. Does everyone agree with that?
IQ.
Well, I personally voted IQ. Yeah, I voted IQ, and I know that I would have thought that it'd be heavily around speed.
Well, funny enough, maybe it's just the people that listen to the pod and follow us. The majority, by I think a large way, was football IQ. But yeah, somebody,
they're both.
Someone left comments. Diego left a comment. He said mentality, which I think is a good one, because I think that kind of covers some of the stuff you're talking about, OC, and we'll get back to that in a second. And our friend Terry Levy, he said he believed all 3, but he made a comment. His comment was all 3 if you're small, if you're tall, just 1. And I understood that point.
Can I throw something in, which I think gets overlooked as well? Communicate. You can get average players that talk a lot, and they sometimes they sound like they're doing more than what they're doing. So they give instructions. They say all the great things. They say all the buzzwords, and it sounds great. And I've seen it where a coach, he's a great talker, isn't he? He's great. He's good at what he does. He doesn't do much on the ball or off the ball, because he talks a lot and gives instructions. He stands out.
Yeah,
and that gets them that'll get to a certain point. And with the right coaching and the right arm around the shoulder and protection, they do get to a next stage. So I think communication in the right way helps a lot as well. Will help a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to OC, your question, just repeat that again.
Yeah, so I suppose you've just covered it, but for a small player, what is it that they need to thrive? And also, your boys, I know your boy plays in goal, Dan, but like, what type of players are they? Like Deji.
Kalen has an abundance of different. He's a good communicator. He's aggressive when he needs to be, and he's got a good IQ of the game where he plays, so he understands where he needs to be, when he needs to be. But one Andrew would testify this. One thing you notice about Kalen, he talks a lot. Like his voice, you can hear, and players that played in front of him, Harris had played in front of him, they know when Kalen's playing. When he's not happy, they know. So he has that kind of that streak in him. As you're getting older as well, he's getting that more determination and assertiveness in terms of what he wants around him. And I think for him, that's a good trait going forward. If he's an outfield player, I think I've seen him out on pitch. I think because he's not naturally an outfield player, he's not as aggressive as he could probably other boys around him. But I think that's a trait as well that so Deji's boy, he can be aggressive on the front foot, and he's like again tenacious. I see it all the time. He's tenacious when he wants to play. He can be tenacious and he's aggressive, but his IQ comes in there, so he can get in the spaces and out of spaces before the players around him know what's going on.
Tom?
It's a hard one. I've never really thought sort of, I guess who would I necessarily compare him to? I think, it's his strength really. My eldest is, very much being a footballer. His IQ, to create opportunities, break lines, get on the ball, make something happen. He's kind of got a super strength, in my opinion, in terms of getting into that pocket. He's left-footed, and if you give him sort of half an opportunity in front of goal, I think he can kind of punish you. I quite like him in that 10 10 position, but that's another conversation really, because what we see as parents and, you know, my kind of thoughts around football and where I think he has the most success, you know, clubs might not necessarily see him as that player. You know, they might see him, you know, they might not necessarily see him being a 10, and they might see him being a left back. So, you know, ultimately, you know, I think you need to have more than, you know, one string to your bow as a player these days. You can't just be, you know, fixated in one position. I think you need to be, you know, able to be, you know, you don't want to be, not that this is a bad thing, by the way, because I think he's an exceptional player and he's short and he plays in lots of different positions, and he's probably had, you know, the most Premier League caps, so he's up there, which is James Milner. You know, he can play in any position, but I wouldn't necessarily want him to be like just a utility person. I want him to be someone that can ultimately have a bit of an identity. But yeah, his gift is around, I think, the IQ, and like you say, he's always thinking about, you know, those 2 steps further forward. You know, you've all watched him play. You know, most recently, I think, Deji, you've seen him train, and there was, you know, 1 or 2 passes was the difference between that team winning and not. Do you know what I mean? So it's, yeah, look, I think that's where I would say his superpower is.
Okay, brilliant. So I guess, Tom, you asked me a question on Monday about my boy being tall and how I saw it. And I guess recently playing in the grassroots, I think I've mentioned on the pod before, it can be the land of the giant. But also I don't think there is that kind of protection of smaller players in the grassroots. I think if you're good enough, you play. I don't think many teams can be that choosy and that picky. So if you've got a baller, he plays and you help him find a way to play in those pockets, I think. And I guess, yeah, I can confidently say bye-banding isn't happening. I guess we can't do it in grassroots because of the age. If you're under 10, you're supposed to be under 10. But I do see it, and I guess this has come up in Bournemouth and Brentford. So it is happening in the academies. But what do we really think is going on there? Are academies protecting the player, or are they protecting results and reputation, do we think?
What I see at the moment in football, and I go back to what I said earlier, is we are definitely seeing a swing in favour of bigger boys. You know, and I would say the less developed boys are not getting the same opportunities. With that, my concern as a parent just generally is if you're allowing boys to be pushed up, and by the way, I think there's some exceptional boys, you know, that absolutely should be playing up. What is happening to that gap? That's my biggest concern. What is happening to that gap in terms of if you're not stretching that smaller player and you're stretching someone that's bigger and you're giving them exposure to the bigger formats, the quicker pace games, the physicality, and we're not giving that exposure to the smaller players, I just think that gap is ultimately getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's, where do we make that up? You know, where do you make that up? Can you make that up is the question.
So is it just, sorry to cut you there, Dan, I just want to make sure we understand, when you use the word opportunity, what does that look like? Is that more minutes? Is that responsibility? Is that trust? Is that a role? Is that the tolerance of mistakes? What does opportunity mean for you, Tom?
I think all of those points. But ultimately, I think there's very much a perception if your boy is pushing forward within football, opportunity looks at, for most people, especially in academy, they put playing up, exposure to being playing up is you know, coincides with you know, that physical talent. And I think, you know, as a parent, we don't see, and I've been fortunate enough to be in the academy for a long time. I very rarely see a smaller player play up. Very rarely.
Fair. Dan, you were going to say something?
When Tom was saying about the focus thing, do academies actually want these players to succeed, or they, as the elephant in the room is, do they want the focus players to just keep pushing on, and the numbers around now just building up numbers anyway to make the squads, because they need 9 other players or 7 other players. So the players that are playing up eventually are going to go, and the gap's going to get bigger anyway. So if you look at, like you talk about Max Downham, if he was smaller at the same ability, would he get the same exposure that he's getting now, kind of thing? So do the academies actually want the gap to get closer, or are they focused on the 1 or 2 special gems they've got to keep pushing them?
Fair, good point. I'm going to come back to some of those points. I know Brandon wants to speak, and I know he's off mute. Okay, so OC, do you have a point there?
No,
I'm just listening. I agree with everything.
I think.
Go on.
When a boy gets or a girl gets signed and they're smaller, I think generally these players' technical ability is top. I think the smaller players that I know in these academy systems are very, very elite, perhaps with their football IQ or with their technical ability. So I suppose, just to Tom's point that you originally started with the bio-banding, there's a reason that they signed them. If now perhaps they feel like playing them down will give them more opportunity to have success, are you saying that you feel like there's something wrong with that? Because
just to clarify, it's not playing down, it's playing with their physical peers, if you like. Not necessarily playing with all under 10s if they're under 11s. It's playing with those grouped in the same physical growth.
And I think the terminology that a lot of people use now is it's not up or down, it's across.
Yeah.
So, but I hear what you said, OC, and I think, you know, that's certainly something that doesn't get. I think because we don't, as a culture in the UK, there's a stigma around, you know, dropping down and or playing with younger, less physical players. I think because it isn't done frequently, there's obviously that comes with a, you know, a bit of a stigma around, you know, that must be a bad thing.
Yeah.
If that was done more frequently and that there was more knowledge about why it was being done and there was a true development plan, then I think then ultimately that could work. And because I don't know what they do in Spain or in Europe, but you know, they might do that and it's more widely accepted. But because it's never done in the UK, in our it's just not accepted, and people see it as a form of weakness. You know, I was only having a conversation the other day, and one parent had sort of basically said, "Oh, that the reason why my son is playing across and is up is, you know, ultimately it's not to do with that he's big. He's just better than them, you know." So, you know, and which is ultimately if you don't you know, teach people and you don't provide them with the correct knowledge base, then they might see that as being the case. Does that kind of make sense? So if you're not educating people correctly about the process, they might look at it and go, well, yeah, ultimately, if he's playing up, he must be better than other people. You know, it's
Well, Tom, sorry to cut you, sorry, OC, but I guess human nature dictates that, right? Because has anyone ever said playing up? I know we talk about playing across, but playing up is what we've all known it to be when we were playing. Has anyone spoken of playing up being a negative thing? I don't believe they have. So it's always been positive. So the inverse of that, playing down, will be seen as negative, right? So your point is valid that the education piece has to come in. But I think people need to be educated and people need to see it as if it is a case of playing down or playing across, what that looks like and for how long. And as long as you're speaking to people and parents and players, then the education is in there. And that player themselves doesn't feel like they're all going to be out the door. They're going to not be retained if they're playing down in April. Sorry, go on, Brandon.
I think the key word is that development plan. And like you said, and communication. And how long are they going to do it? If they do it for a year, then you're going to throw some questions about. But let's say, okay, you're going to play down for 6 weeks. This is your development plan. This is what we want you to start doing. Maybe if you're a centre back, can you take the ball and drive into the midfield, where you're going to get more success playing down and learning the traits. And then maybe if you keep doing it, then you go back to your age group. And when you have that confidence, you're automatically going to start doing it in your age group. So again, it's development plan. They need to know why. You need to know whenever you're doing something, you need to know why you're doing it.
100%.
So again, do people have the patience for it? That's obviously another question.
People being who? The coaches, the players, the parents?
Players, parents. Oh yeah, I'll say players and parents more.
All right.
And this is obviously more. Go on.
Just on the question that I asked Tom. Asked Tom. I think that because naturally they're signing these physically developed players and they're going to be dominant, when you're finding those gems, let's call them an Iniesta or a Harvey Elliott, someone that is a lot smaller, I think that there does need to be a level of protection, because if you're putting someone that's 6 foot against a 4 foot person, they are going to get their success. But I think the point that we're making here is quite key, because to my mind, and fair enough, perhaps Brandon's got a bit more insight than myself and you guys, but it feels as though there may be a conversation that takes place within the offices or whatever it may be, that he's struggling, so let's play him down. So it doesn't necessarily feel that strategic, like it's a strategic driver for development. It might be a case of, do you know what, he's not really doing that well, let's put him down and see how he gets on. So I almost feel like when players are being signed and they're of a smaller size, when the offer's going out and when you're sort of speaking about maybe a long-term plan, that needs to be up front, that actually we may utilise this just because the buyer banding might allow them to have more success. But there is a stigma around playing down. But I don't. There's 1 or 2 stories that I've heard, but I don't think it's necessarily that well managed or communicated as a development tool.
Do we know? Sorry, Brandon. Do we know how the bio-banding works in essence? Is it a case of a player is struggling, as you mentioned, their OC, let's use the bio-banding to play him down, across, if you like? Or is it a case of at all levels of the academy, bio-banding is used and all the teams will look similar in terms of physique and height? Do we know?
From my understanding, I think it is about physical attributes to obviously give, so that a boy at maybe under 14 and the boy's a lot bigger than him is given an opportunity to play around his own age group, not his own age group, his physicality size. So his IQ might be, he might play with under 12 who's the same size as him, but they can still monitor his decision making based on that, because he's still making the right decisions and the right choices. So even though physically he can't do the right things in his own age group, IQ wise he's still able to do that. So I think they still get assessed based on those choices they make during the games, rather than just solely physical attributes. From
okay, so
there is the key thing is the maturation percentage in terms of where your growth is. So let's say, for example, your growth percentage is only 78%. There's actually tailored weekends where you will play other clubs where it will just be done on your percentage of growth. So let's say you'll be in a band where you'll be from, say, 80 to 89%, and then you'll have one that's say, or 88 to 93, and then 93 up to 100. But the weird part of it is learning is that if you're say at 78%, you don't even classify for biobanding because you're still so small. You're a late developer. So it's done on, if you're an early developer, or if you're a late developer, or an early developer, it's all about your percentage of growth. And I think, just to sort of not get it confused, playing across at weekends isn't biobanding. That's based on, coach's decision. Biobanding is something that is purely tailored for an actual event. So you'll have like events throughout the season. So you might have like 3 or 4 games where they're just tailored for biobanding. So that just to make sure that there's no confusion to the listeners. If you play your own age group or you play across, that being either up or down, it's just a normal weekend. Biobanding is purely done on your level of your percentage of growth. But that's not done every week. You might have 2 or 3 of those events throughout a year. But if you're not even at a point where you can be registered for biobanding because you've got so much more growth, you're a late developer. So effectively, you haven't gone through, you haven't started puberty, you've still got a bit of chubbiness around you, you've got a round face, etc., etc. If you look at some of the rationales behind it, it's quite interesting. But I just kind of go back to this whole thing every time, is that regardless if it's biobanding, regardless if it's normal weekends, is the gap getting bigger if you're not allowing opportunities for boys to excel, if you're not giving them a chance in environments where it stretches them? Because one of the biggest things that was ever said to me, and it rings for me in my ears every day, is that my son, and this come from a coach, is that we won't know how your son truly develops until he gets onto a bigger pitch, because he's a smaller player. So ultimately their concerns are how he will get round the pitch. And that was open at like under 9, that comment was made. So they're already judging someone on what they look like and how they could potentially develop, and that being flagged as a concern so early. So for me, and I talk about this to lots of people, is there not a world in where you introduce the area that's a concern earlier rather than later?
There's a lot there, Tom. I hear you. So first and foremost, I think what I would like is for us to keep things simple, and I'd like the academies to keep things simple. Under 15, under 16, it is about development, not results. It's about developing the child and whatever you need to develop the child. So I've had a great coach, we all know this coach, Tom, you know this coach very well, say that as part of the development, there needs to be an environment where your child gets wins. And there needs to be an environment where they're tested. That's important, the winning and the challenges. Now, for me, I don't think the gap is getting bigger simply because you're not playing against more physical boys week in, week out, because eventually when they hit puberty, that kind of strengths thing that we're talking about, hopefully it should kind of level itself out. But I agree with you. You shouldn't be judging a player on their physicality, because what is it doing? It is basically stopping creativity. You are stopping the potential Messis of this world, Ronaldinho, they're genius of this world, because you're saying, you know what? You're too small. That's rubbish. For me, let them play. Let them, like you said, Brandon, let them find their way. When they find their way, they will carve out their identity. I really hate it when they say we're not sure if this player can get around the pitch. What they're basically saying is they want athletes. That's the word. That's the code word. We want athletic players. We want them to be athletic. What is the point in having a steeplechase runner if they can't control the ball? I don't understand. What is the point of that? Do you get what I'm saying? If they're gonna keep jumping over the bloody hurdle and they can't control the ball, are they a footballer? No, they're not. They're a long distance runner. Yeah, and there needs to be a distinction. Pirlo is a fantastic footballer. He wasn't running like Gareth Bale, was he? So we need to have an environment that allows the kids to be themselves and to hone in, like Andrew said, on their superpower. Well, what we're doing and what the academies, I believe, are doing, and or at least the environment is doing, is you're not allowing them to hone in on their superpower. We are telling them this is how you have to be. Why do you have to be like that? In Europe, you're allowed to be yourself. And it goes back to, if Messi was in this country, would we have known Messi? The answer is no. I don't think we would have.
Also, can I just throw something out? And then I'm not throwing shades at anyone. I think it's lazy coaching. Because if you see a smaller player playing against a bigger player and he's not getting success, as a coach, you need to find why he's not getting success. And then you have to teach him why he's not getting success. Because he might not be getting success because let's say the 1v1, maybe he's not getting him off balance. Maybe he's not putting the ball into space after. More times they're just moving side to side. Taller player just gets his arm around, get his body around, and then they lose the ball. Is he not? You've got to find solutions. He might not. So he's on the right side of you. Where are you going to put the ball? On your left side, because you're going to protect it. Your whole body is protecting it. But some coaches are not telling young people, telling smaller players that. They're just saying, "Oh no, you're just too small. Forget about it," kind of thing. So sometimes it goes down to lazy coaching.
Lazy coaching, or I guess not. They're not ready to coach small players. Is it the same thing?
Maybe.
I say that because in academies, sometimes it seems like they don't have patience for, if you're not doing what they need you to do, sometimes they don't have patience. That's why I asked that question.
Can I throw a spanner in the room? And I think Dan and...
No, before you throw any spanners in the room, and no one's pulled him up on this. He mentioned Messi, Ronaldinho, and Jorginho in the same sentence, rolled off his tongue again. Like, that should invalidate anything you say. I'm just saying.
I will constantly
do that, please. That's a red card.
I'll be plugging my skills until the day I die. I swear, Dad. No, but on a level, I think there's something about I also think I don't want to fully blame coaches as well. I agree with Brandon, but I think it's the system. The system's at fault. I was having this conversation the other day, and I believe that in the academy system, for example, those coaches, they need to get results, right? If you get results, you go up the ladder.
What's the result? Max Bauman's a result.
Yeah, but I also think that age group is a result. So if you're winning week in, week out, those results, whether they're officially recorded or not, someone's taking note. And in order for you to progress, if you've done well with the nines, what does done well mean? Well, is your nines winning, or are they winning matches? Have they beaten some of the bigger academies, the Cat 1s? Maybe you're a Cat 2. That might give you an opportunity then to get under 15s. Then you're doing the under 18s. All of a sudden you're under 21s. Now you're on the brink of first team football. And so, to think that those coaches are not under pressure to get those results is probably one of the drivers as to why at the kind of younger age, it is kind of easier to get the bigger one that could just throw you off the pitch. Because if it means that that small player can't get past him with their trickery because the brutality is gonna outweigh the skill, then I'm gonna bring in the brutality to get the result. But that means we're not thinking about development; we're thinking about results.
Yeah, and I guess that goes to Tom's point at the beginning, right? Because is there or should there be somebody, I mean, a director of football or a director of the academy who's not focused on the results, who's focused on these players? You as a coach, Coach DeGinio, you said you want us to bring this player or sign him, yeah? Sign him at under 9, sign him at under 10s, whatever age group it is. What do you see in him? I asked you that question. Oh, he's technical, he's tenacious, he's got an eye for goal. Okay, so DeGinio likes player A. 6 months down the line, why don't I come to you and say, how is player A getting on? How is he developing? That was Tom's question at the beginning. Why is that not happening? Is it just because of results? Why are we not developing the individuals, seeing what they're good at, working on what they're good at, and then also leaning on or leaning into what they're not so good at and turning that into a superpower?
Because you don't have to.
But you brought him in. To OC's point, you brought him in. You told me, DeGinio, I want to sign him. Why did you do that? Did you get it wrong?
That's a good
Or
point.
are you being lazy? I'm going to stop there. I'm going to leave you to think about that. Sorry if there are any points that anyone wanted to mention. I just want us to listen to Joe Cole and see what he says about this subject.
I think there is an argument for both sides, and probably down the middle. It depends on the player's mindset. That they should, if a player looks like he's struggling playing in his own age because his maturation isn't there and he's losing confidence, you can drop him down for like 6 week spells into the under 12s. But you've got to have buy-in. You can't have the parents thinking it's the end of the world. You can go down, play for 6 weeks, get a little bit more confidence, a few more touches, more time on the ball. And I'm a big believer in playing. They should still be playing for their school teams and their Sunday league teams if they want, whilst we're at academies, you know, because most of the kids at the academies are just hanging on in there, and they need to go and feel like they're elite level players when they go with their school and districts and things like that.
So we've heard from Joe Cole, a smaller player, an exceptional player. We all grew up watching Joe Cole. Oh, we're a bit older, but we watched Joe Cole. We know what he's about. He has a skill move named after him. He actually said stuff that kind of contradicts some of what we said earlier. But one thing I just wanted to ask you, I'm going to leave it open to the floor here, is we kind of accept struggles for the more developed players. So if they're struggling and they're the player that we're seeing is getting us results, to your point, Deji, not the player we brought in who's technical and small, we accept the struggle from the bigger player. We don't kind of accept it from the smaller player. Why is that? Why don't we have that care to do what Joe Cole said and maybe have that conversation if their maturation's not there and bring them down? A couple of questions in one, a bit of a bundle, but I'm going to throw that open to the floor. Anyone going to take it? Why do we accept struggles with a bigger player and not the smaller player? Why do you think that, OC? I'm going to put you on the spot because your son's tall, like my son, or tallish.
Yeah, do you know what? Because for the smaller player, if they are struggling, it again, it's a stigma and it's labelling, but it's almost like they're small, they're not having an impact, they're not cut out for the game, they can't handle themselves, as it were. And it doesn't really matter how technical one is. I feel like certainly within the system and probably within grassroots as well, they're looking at players and thinking actually they're not going to be cut out for the big leagues, as it were, because they literally just can't compete. So I feel like when you have a taller player, like say for instance my boy, he's not signed, but like the number of people that I speak with, they're like, just wait on him. Like, just wait on him. He's coming through. Listen, I know he's a good player. He'll come through when he comes through. But there's a different type of energy around that. Do you understand? Like, I do think he's technical. I do think he's a talented player, but because he's of a bigger size, he's looked upon differently. Like, people will just be passing by, and I say passing by, but people I see like on the circuit, and yeah, they'll always be looking for him. They'll always be looking for him. So at times he has struggled. He's only under 9s anyway, but he's struggled at times. But that seems to be more accepted than perhaps other small boys that are of equal standard, maybe a higher level of player, if that's possible. My boy's the best. But anyway, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think ultimately that's the way that it's seen within a game, and just to, like, when you look at it, many players, we've had Joe Cole that have just spoken, your Jadon Sancho's, your Sakas, your Jack Wilshere's, your Phil Foden's, all of them at some point were questioned on, are they going to be big enough for the game? Are they going to be physical enough? Literally all of them. Any small player, even Messi, it was leveled at him over in Spain at the time. So for me, the point that Joe Cole made at the top of the statement was about the boy's mentality.
Yeah,
I feel like that's super, super important. The boy and the family, because for me, if you're going to make it, like, basically, if you're going to make it, you're meant to make it. It's basically how I see it. I know some boys, smaller boys, might have opportunities that may be less than others, but you've seen a number of players that come through that I've just mentioned, and there's a whole catalogue of small players that have come through. And I almost feel like they had that rejection. They had coaches say, no, I don't really fancy him. But actually there was a mentality and like a stillness within, like a ruggedness within them, and by extension their family, which allowed them to push through and say, no, do you know what? Like, we're coming. Like, we're still coming. But I almost feel like within this space now, you have parents of players under 9, under 10, under 11. And because their boys or girls may be slightly overlooked, there's now this level of nervousness and there's this energy within the home, and then they might be speaking within the car, and then they might be speaking to the next person on the phone, and then their kids there, and they're speaking about how their little Derek or Johnny or whatever didn't get the opportunity, when actually you look at your boy, you're like, listen, he's talented, he has a dream, he wants to make it, and actually we're just going to fortify our mind and continue to keep going. So I almost feel like certainly it's going to be harder for a smaller player, but I feel like people give up before they've really got into the battle. Like, and maybe Brandon can speak to that, because I know mentality is your piece, your thing. But I think it's a big thing that Joe Cole just mentioned there.
No, 100%. And if you look at British players that's gone on to winning Premier League titles and whatnot, yes, we might think as fans they're not the best players and whatnot, but their mentality takes them to that extra mile. For example, you've got players like Jordan Henderson, who technically we might not look at him, but we know what we're going to get with Jordan Henderson. We know what we're going to get with James Milner, because their mentality takes them to the next level. They're going to fight for every ball. When they're going to try and make something happen, and I think that, of course, that's the difference. You have to have that the mentality to take you to the next level. If you don't have that, doesn't matter if you're small or big, you just won't make it to the highest level.
Yeah, I accept that. I accept mentality. I do accept that. But we're almost saying that if you're small, you're going to have to accept the struggle. Are we not? Because shouldn't the big player also have struggles that they have to accept? But by default, because you're smaller, you're saying, I'm not quoting you here, but it sounds like we're saying smaller players will struggle, they have to accept it, their mentality's got to be strong. Where I think all footballers' mentality should have to be strong. Frank Lampard is not a small player. Frank Lampard wasn't always seen as the one, but his mentality is what got him through. Right, but at the same time, James Milner, we touched on, isn't small. Oh, sorry, is small-ish, but his mentality got him record number of appearances, going through multiple clubs, still playing at the age of whatever he is now playing. So I think mentality is a given. I don't think it should just be for small players.
I think you're absolutely right, Andrew. And I think the thing that we're talking about, and OC, thank you for being so honest and candid. What I think I'm asking for, and I think what we're all saying is we just want merit. That's what we're asking for. If you're going into the top team, if you're going into an academy, any environment, any elite environment, are you there on merit? If you are, whether you're big or small, it doesn't matter. You are a baller. Do you get what I'm saying? Where I take issue is where you might be at a club where the little ones they can ball, the taller ones can't ball, but the taller ones are being the ones that are being looked at, they're being chased after, they're being called athletic, they're being called, oh, I like that height. I was told the other day that literally for one of the districts, you know, it was confirmed before that kid kicked the ball. Confirmed. They don't even know what that kid's about to do, but they just seen the height, and that's, if it's good enough for you, then it's good enough for me. You know like that. That for me is my issue. I just want football to go back to how it was for us growing up. If you were good enough in the playground, you didn't need to talk it. We all knew who you were, and we all knew what you could do. And I do feel like a little bit like schools these days, there's less resilience in the system. Because if you're bringing in people that haven't even got in on merit, then you're wondering why the academies or elite environments are struggling. Over in the Echo, I'm seeing Echo teams beating academy teams. It might not mean anything to you, but when I was growing up, that could never happen. That could never happen. But it's happening. So what's going on? And that's why I'm asking the questions. And I think we need to go back to the basics. You should be there on merit. If you can't pass and receive a ball, yeah, where are you going? In my opinion.
So do we think the system has changed? Because we do have a crop currently of so-called 10s in the Premier League, English, British 10s, your Phil Fodens, your Morgan Rogers, Sancho's, maybe a winger, Cole Palmer's a bit taller, but we do have a few. Are we saying that we've gone away from that system and we're no longer going to produce number 10s because we're going for giants?
I think you need to just also understand even how powerful figures within the game are. And I talk about managers and you talk about Pep, and recently just something that he described in terms of how wingers will look like going forward. And that message and that knock-on effect of how that then ripples down into academy as well. So, you know, which is such a stark contrast from if you look at the Dowmans that come through, or the Sakas or Wanyeri, you know, they're not massive. So I just think we should all just, you know, take a time to reflect that, you know, what people say at the top of the game, because people see him as being, you know, a complete game changer in the industry, what knock-on effect that has within our industry, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, oh my God, you know, he's essentially people's God within the game.
Yeah.
You know, if that's what he's saying, Academy Manager X is saying, well, fucking, you know, that's what we're going to do. You might have to, you know, bleep that out. That swear word. Sorry, but you know, that's something that we might need to do. But I think, you know, going back to sort of the question that you were saying about the bigger players, you know, they're going to have to go through adversity. They are going through adversity. They're growing. Coordination's a big thing. You know, and we see that how that knock-on effect happens with their balance, coordination, striking a ball. But I do think that overall that there will be slightly more setbacks, and you might need to create a more, harder, resilient child if they are smaller, because I think they are going to be tasked with a few more, hurdles in their direction. But I would say the same to Dan's son plays in goal. The answer is like one of the best goalkeepers that we ever saw at Man United. We all know who it is, Fabian Barthez. He was a superb goalkeeper. Will we ever see someone like that again? And that's a there's a lot of focus on the players, but are we going to see any one of the even David Raya, smaller goalkeeper? He's effectively under 6 foot, and I think he's the best in the world.
I agree.
You mentioned too many players from that North London side, though, Tom. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah. I think just at this sort of young age now, sort of looking at the foundation phase, it certainly is a problem in terms of recruitment at that young age, and I think parents need to. What is it that we can do as individuals to change that? Because I think I was linking it to a point to say, I'm looking at players like Virgil van Dijk or Scott McTominay. He's not 6'4", isn't he? But he was 5'6" when he was 17. He was. I think Tyrone Mings. He had a growth spurt very, very late on as well. And I feel like when you're in it and you're like, listen, I'm in it to win it, as it were. Like, I want to play at that level. There's billions of people that have said that they're never going to get there. Like, they're just not going to get there, type of thing. But I feel like two things: one, have that vision and have that purpose in your mind. But secondly, coming back to the academy piece, in this day and age right now, are we allowing people to come through to actually see those late bloomers, that late development? Because there's probably a number of kids that were 5'6", like McTominay, and they were just discarded early. So,
yeah, I think the key word to that is patience. I think clubs now don't have the patience, which is a sad thing. Because, like you said, who knew McTominay is going to be 6 foot plus in a couple of years? Which is, I think that's the worrying thing about football. I think going back to people want results now. But results now might not mean you're going to get results long term. So yeah.
100%. Brandon.
I think, touching what Brandon said, that's about results now, but I think the sport now has become a business alongside the sport. If you look at last week, Midlands club bought a player from France for £12 million, and he's 16.
Oh yeah, I saw that. He's huge.
So, and there you go. The first thing you said is huge, not how good he is, just he's huge. That's the first thing you see. He's 16. They spent €12 million on him. How close to the first team they ever get, you don't ever know, because it's a business for now. Yeah, I think for me, I've kind of gone past the whole Kay's not big enough, he's not right. I think for me, Caden's time will come. It's about prepping him to be prepared for that at the right time. So sometimes we want our boys to be in academy systems and be in elite levels, elite environments. At the same time, we've got to really focus that and be realistic. Are our boys ready? Are the boys ready to be there? Because one thing being there, are you ready to be there? Whether you're tall, whether you're big, whether you're small, whatever it may be, it's about mindset. And we spoke about the average players. I would say this, when people call me out, Jordan Henderson, probably Liverpool's best captain. Yeah, not player, captain, compared to Gerrard. Because if you look what he did in that dressing room, the players he had around him, and they all respected him. And it's about mindset and his ability to do what he did on the pitch for the team. Yeah. So I've had arguments and conversations about, I think he's a better captain for Liverpool than Gerrard. That's because of his mindset. And we talk about mindset every day. And I go back again to Kate. It's about me preparing him. When that time comes for you, you have to be ready. whether it's rejection, success or greatness, you got to be ready for it. And I think as parents, we have to realize as well who wants it more. Is it you as a parent to say your son plays in the academy, or is it because your son wants to be there? He wants to be the best. It wasn't until about a month ago, Kayla said to me, when I'm older, when I'm a professional, when I'm a pro, I was like, what? Because he's never said that before. So that's his own mindset. He wants to be somewhere. It's not me pushing him to do that. That's down to him. When we go to training, if he says to me, Dad, I'll wait sometimes on purpose to the last minute in time-wise. If he doesn't remind me and say we're going to be late, that means I know he doesn't want to go training. So that's on you now. You're an age now where you have to decide your own options. It's not me pushing you to be a footballer or play football. It's what you want to do. Yeah. And I think that's another thing as well. We can't just push it on our children to do something they don't want to do.
So earlier, sorry, obviously, I'll let you come in, but earlier we touched on the superpower potentially being football IQ. But it sounds like the superpower should be mentality. That's what I'm hearing. Sorry, OC.
I think that would always be the number one thing, mentality. I've mentioned it a few times, but I think that will be. But just to the point that you were making, Dan, I feel like just the nature of 2026, 2025 and the Instagram and the FOMO is certainly for parents. Because say, for instance, my son, I feel like my son's as talented as many, certainly talented as many players, more talented than players within the academy system. He's a tall kid. But I just didn't think he was ready to play academy football. He just wasn't ready, like mentally, like psychologically, he just wasn't ready to play. And I feel like there's such a frenzy for players to get in, and that's driven from the parents. So now in the Echo Under-9 season, I've seen, I think, most of the teams. I don't want anyone to get on to me, but I maybe other than one, potentially two players, I don't think anyone has been hard done by not getting into an academy, based on what I've seen, just the talent that I've seen right now. So, not saying that there aren't talented players around, but their journey and their trajectory may just be a little bit further off. Some make it in under 9, some may be under 12, some may be even later. But I think because there's so much posting going on, there's so much flexing going on, so much conversations taking place within the pre-academies and the development centres and on the sidelines and in grassroots, it's just become a little bit of a toxic environment where they're like, how comes my son's not playing academy football? He should be there. What is he too small? And like I say, my personal opinion, from what I've seen, I don't necessarily think that anyone can say, yeah, he should be in. I almost feel like they're just at their stage where they are in their development, and their parents just need to be calm with it, focus on their kids, and their time will come if they have that faith and belief.
So mentality followed by patience.
It's key.
Is that what we're saying? Yeah?
Yeah, it's key.
And mentality, patience, and realism. I don't want to use the word delusional, but realism. Football is played with our eyes. Thank God it's not acting, because you don't have to be a good actor to be an actor, but you have to be a good footballer to be a good footballer. Yeah?
Oh.
And sometimes, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. So let's say a game's 90 minutes. Yeah, 90 minutes long. How often how long are you on that ball for?
They say about 2 minutes in the 90.
Okay. So for 88 minutes you're acting, doing something. So I think it's a theatre. They say, and as much as we hate to say, that place we call the theatre of dreams, that's what it is, a theatre. People, you got to create the act of running hard, running fast, doing the right thing. So it is an act, isn't it? The players are acting. They perform for two. They're doing their job for 2 minutes. The rest of the time, there's acting, creating a vision for what people, illusion, what people see them doing. So, as much as you say it is what it is, I think it is just it is an act. It is ultimately an act. Acting. They're running hard, running fast. They're shouting loud. They're pushing. It's just an act. It's not actually playing football all the time.
Yeah. But my only slight pushback on that, Dan, would be, and I fully agree with you, is that people say they know ball, but shouldn't they be? I feel like people should be in a position to see past that. So yes, there are some players who my wife calls them busybodies, like they're busy doing nothing. Do you get what I'm saying? And you should be able to understand that although the person's very busy, they are busy doing absolutely nothing. Whereas there are some players who might not be as busy, but they are more intentional when they're playing their game of football. A little bit like Tom's son. Not that I get to see him often, but when you do see him, there's an elegance to the way that he plays. Do you get what I'm saying? As an example for one of them. And then there's my boy Harris as well, who likes to just drive through the middle. And like you were saying, Dan, in terms of commanders, so all of our boys have something that they do. But there are a lot of players, and I'm just saying I'm saying to parents as well, like if you know they're not ready, don't put them in the environment, help them out. Don't put them in an environment where you know they're not ready. You know that they don't have some of the basic things they need, tools, to be able to have success in that environment. Yes, all of our boys can't make it, but what you want to do is give them their best foot forward. And I do feel like some parents have rushed, knowing deep down that they're not ready. And for me, if someone says this to me, I'm going to go to this club, but you know what, I know they're not ready. And my pushback is, then why are you sending them? If you know deep down they're not ready, why are you sending them then? Why don't you just wait?
I'm going to push back on that, only to the level or the extent that there are boys in the academy now that I guess got in at pre-academy under 9 signing. There probably wasn't that much difference in height at that age. Fast forward 4 years, the height disparity could be more evident. Okay, the trajectory could be something that they're not even considering right now. They're the ones that may struggle. They're the ones that I think we're focusing on, not the ones that are not ready now. They were ready then. They're in the system. How do we look after them? They've got talent, as Osi said. They've got talent. That's why they're there. How do we turn them into Joe Cole, Jermaine Defoe? Will we see those type of short players again? I think the shortest player in the Premier League right now is Tariq Lamptey. I think he's 5'4".
Is that Fiorentina? Mm-hmm.
Is that Fiorentina now? Well, yeah.
Maybe on loan, but yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
but
Lamptey, yeah.
He was the shortest player last season or whenever he last played. Will we see a player that short? I mean, what is short? Is it 5'4"? Is it 5'6"? Is it 5'8"? The point is, are we in danger of losing those players to the system that focuses on the focus group, a point that I wanted to come back to, that Dan mentioned? Just the business, producing Caicedos over Bernardo Silva's. I think that is the real question of what the academies are doing right now. And I don't know the answer. And I'm not calling them out per se, but what we do see is, I guess, with the introduction of something like biobanding, which is where we started this conversation, that is a tool that could help, but is it like life that we're not really preparing them for what they need to do to survive and survive against your Caicedos, your Tyrone Mings, your Virgil van Dijks? Like, they'll get success, but will they learn to play and close that gap? Which I think, I can understand your point, Tom. I think the gap could be widening to a certain degree because of this. Iron sharpens iron. So if they're not sharpening iron in their own age group or above, how sharp is their iron becoming?
Yeah, look, I always go back to this. You play bio-band and you play against similar height, maybe people that are slightly smaller than you, and you have lots of success, lots of touches, you're beating them on one-on-ones. Ultimately, they might be younger than you. I think there's an education process, because ultimately if you're beating people that are the same height as you, you're more confident because it's less imposing, you've got more of an opportunity, your success rate's higher. Then you go and play maybe at your own age, or if you're lucky enough to get an opportunity to play up. I see an extension of a 1v1 is a 2v1. And that's when you become a clever player. So why would you get involved in a battle knowing that someone's bigger than you, but you can outsmart them because your IQ's in a different level? So you'll get on the ball, you'll be quick, you'll lay it off and you want it straight back, and then you can move the ball from one side of the pitch and the other, and you completely isolated that one individual who apparently is going to break up the play, he's going to be the dominating physical person. I just think there's a lack of knowledge in the game. There's a lot of focus on 1v1s, you beating your man, but a 2v1 is an extension of a 1v1. So, there's that education process there that just because you're having success at your own age or similar height, that's great. But, if you move into a different physicality, in a different arena, then, that should equally be rewarded, that you're not getting into a physical battle and that you're being clever and that you're actually, your IQ. So, ultimately, hopefully that gives you like my personal opinion on the matter. I just think there's too much focus on succeeding, and it's not real life. It's a little bit life in general at the moment. People are protecting people from real life. The fact is you need to prepare our boys, or boys or girls out there, for the real life, and that's no different to football. Why would you stop someone and stop their exposure to the real game? If you're smaller, you need to find a way of achieving success. And that's the same if you're a smaller person. I've watched recently a couple of smaller people playing up. There's one particular person I saw or heard about at Arsenal, and he played against a load of giants, and the giants couldn't get the ball off him. He was an incredible player, low centre of gravity. The ball stuck to him like glue. He's found a way that even the larger boys didn't have success against him. That's phenomenal, incredible. But that club has given that young child an opportunity to do that. And at the moment, there's few and far people that I see, few and far people between, that are giving, the likes of your boy Deji an opportunity. But Brendan, what's your thoughts on that as a topic? Do you kind of agree with that, or do you think ultimately the boys from the UK or British, that do you think there'd be a surge of boys that go over to European football that will be smaller? I personally think there will be.
100%, because even if you look at it, like say a boy at 19 and they're an English club, more times they're going out loan to Germany or Spain, and more times they're all small players, small technical players like Smith Rowe, who went out to Germany to get first team football. But why can't he get first team football in the Championship? But is it because obviously his Championship's a lot bigger players? You don't want to throw him into the deep end. But to be the best players, you have to be in the deep end. You have to find solutions. How are you going to swim? Kind of thing. So no, I think it's more of a number game as well. Like if a small player is getting success 9 out of 10 against a bigger player and playing a year out, so why not keep him there? But then if he's not getting success, then there's an issue. But we have to find, like I said, as a coach, we have to find a solution. Like one of the best players I've coached, he's probably one of the smallest in this group. But now he's pushed. I was not going to say the club, but he's pushing on, and hopefully he has that opportunity to make it as a pro.
He's a fantastic player, by the way. He's a fantastic player. But you guys fostered that environment to allow him to be able to be what he is, and actually he goes against the grain actually, because amongst his peers, I don't actually think he's one of the smallest, but he's banded it up. That's the irony. But someone obviously allowed him to be able to do that, but so easily. I reckon in today's world, even though I only think I don't know what his age is. I'm not so sure the patience is there. It's almost like patience is running out as we go on. Sorry, Tom.
Do you think that's a one-off though, Brandon? We don't see that a lot. You know, that is a rare example. I know who that is. They're very talented, but they're not. It goes back to, were they played down? Or were they chucked into the deep end? And someone put an arm around them and said, you know what, we'll help you, we'll find a solution, we'll be patient, we're not gonna overly protect you, we want to expose you to that bigger pitch, blah blah blah. Me personally, it sounds like that is the case rather than
100%. 100%. And sometimes you need to do that. I remember there was a game that obviously my boy's under 15s now, and he was playing 2 years up. I think when he was he must have been under 10s, and he was playing under 12, under 13, so he was playing 11-a-side football. And he came up to me and he said, wow, this pitch is big. But I have to give him reassurance where it's okay, because just keep doing your thing. Don't worry about the pitch size. And sometimes the player needs that to take him to that next level. But if I went to him, oh no, yes, this is a big pitch, it's going to be difficult for you to travel the ground, maybe to make a 30-yard pass because your leg's not developed yet, he's going to think, oh, the coach got no faith in me. And maybe that moment maybe took him to that next step. So yes, you need someone to have that arm around you and show you the ropes.
Just out of curiosity, Brandon, great point. Where did you play, in what position?
I played him as a 10.
Okay. It sounded like you played him as a 10. I just wanted to understand.
At under 10 and 11 aside. That's impressive. Talent.
So, mentality, patience, coaching is what I'm hearing, gentlemen, is what I'm hearing. I'm going to ask for some final thoughts now, because we've discussed it quite a lot, and I think there are definitely different views. I want to go back to Tom's point. Like, over the years, we've produced Paul Scholes, Joe Cole, Jermaine Defoe, like quite a few small players, short players, and I'm going to cap it at 5'8". Do you think in the next 5 years, bearing in mind Kobe Mainu can't get a game right now, do you think we will produce another crop of small players who will be dominant for club and country? Yes or no? I'm going to start with you, Van Helsing.
I don't want it to be a crop of small players. I want it to be a crop of the right players, if that makes sense. So if on merit, these are the best talent coming through, then regardless of your size, you deserve you deserve a shot. At the moment, with the way the game is going, no. If you are not 6'2", 6'3", borderline playing for the LA Lakers, then I don't think you have any possibility of being a pro player. In England, however, you do have the possibility of being a pro in Europe. So all is not lost.
That was a yes or no question, by the way.
No.
Oh, see.
Yeah, I think we will. I think we will. I feel like, what's his name? Is it Josh King? He's at Fulham. He's quite short.
Yeah.
Come to prominence this season. You got Rio coming through at Liverpool. He's short. You've got
Not getting on the pitch, but he's young. But go on.
He played the other day. He got a move to Liverpool and he's in the first team squad and he's 5'7". What's that guy's name that he came on in a 10-1 win for Man City? He's from around this way. He's playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan McAdoo. He's short, 5'8", 5'9". You've got Morgan Gibbs White, 5'7", I believe. I just feel like the players are like Saka's come through. You've got Bowen who's in the squad, short players. I just feel like at this young opening of academy football, it's a challenge to sort of see that far down the road because the recruitment isn't really. They're not catering for small players, but they're coming through at the top. Outside of Max Dowman, who's 6 foot, I think the majority of English boys that are coming through outside of Nico Riley are probably quite small, if I'm being honest.
Okay, it's fair points. So that's a yes, Tom?
Yes.
Thank you. He understood the assignment.
Yes, I understood the assignment. I didn't want to do a deji, but I will. Yeah, I do think we will have smaller players, and I do think we will get the opportunity to see that again. But ultimately, that all depends on recruitment, and that all starts at the foundation level. So, yes, I hope, I pray.
Cool. Dan?
As I said, yes, the cycle will come around again. That's it.
For goalkeepers?
It doesn't matter. Kenny be 6'3". It don't matter to me.
True. Brandon?
I'm going to say yeah. I think there's going to be a point where the England DNA is going to follow other countries. And I think it's slowly starting. And the reason why I say that because they're changing the format of from next season, and they've got that from Holland. So I think slowly they're going to find a way to get them more smaller players in. Because they're going to look at other clubs and other countries.
Okay, it's fine. So now that we've all said yes, apart from Deji, I'm going to challenge you with another question. I'm going to start with you, Brandon. And I guess the final question is, we've all said yes, we're going to get this crop of players, but has football confused physical readiness with football ability? Closing statement, closing answer.
Yes, it has.
Okay. Dan?
Do you know what? My thing cut out when we were talking. What's the question?
Live TV. Has football confused physical readiness with football ability?
Yeah.
Okay. Tom? Tom's nodding. You're on mute.
Yes, they have. Absolutely.
OC? You're on mute as well. It's not great podcasting. That's on the audio feed.
I don't know if there's a contradiction there, but
there is a contradiction there. This is why I asked the question, and we're all contradicting ourselves in a minute.
I think in the youth arena, definitely a big yes to that answer, to that question, rather.
Deji's probably going to be the only one not contradicting. Dej?
Yeah.
Yes. Is that a big yes?
Yes, it's a big one.
Those listening on the audio feed, Deji writes notes. So on the back of his notes, he's written a big yes and presented it to the screen. He's proud of that because he's the only one that potentially hasn't contradicted himself. And I'm not saying there's a direct correlation, but you get why I asked the question. Mm-hmm. But anyway, guys, listen, it's been a great conversation. There is, I guess, no right, there is no wrong. We can agree, we can disagree, and we can agree to disagree. And I think we've done all three on the pod today. And it's been a refreshing change. We haven't had a guest on today's show. We do have a guest on today's show, obviously Coach Brandon, but it hasn't been all about Coach Brandon today. That show will be another episode in due course. So, Coach Brandon, thank you for joining the panel. It's been great to have your insight and your experience. And shout Lambbeath Tigers once more. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it, man.
No problem. I will ask you our closing question, though, because I've got a motive to answer that question, and you know what it is. Guys, listen, if you've made it this far, you've been involved in a fantastic conversation. One that went left, went right, went up, went down, or Tom, should I say, went across. I think the correct word in there. So if you enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, the notification, and I'm expecting a whirl of comments in our inbox and on the comments. And if you listen on the audio feed, leave a like and a review. Guys, we know you are true to this, so introduce those that are new to this. We have been ball at all cost. And before I actually go into my closing state, Brandon, you're a guest, and we always ask our guests, and you have to help us with this question. If you can think of one person or two you think we should have on that we haven't had on before, who would that be? Cough, cough, Jamal, cough, cough, Dr. David, or anybody else. And whoever that is, you have to help us get them on. So over to you.
I think the best person to have is David. He's taught me a lot throughout my journey in coaching. So definitely going to get David involved in the next one.
Brandon.
This morning, when the morning comes, I'm going to call him straight away and say, you have to jump on.
Brandon, please, you know why? He's been giving me dodgy voice notes for months now saying, I'm going to come back to you. I'm coming. I'm definitely going to come on. Then he told me he's got a booking agent. And I was like, oh, Lord.
Nah, don't worry about that. I've got this. He's definitely going to come the next one.
Okay, you've heard it here first. I've also called Alex and asked Alex to help get him on. So, Brandon, it's over to you.
I got this, man.
Yeah?
I got you, my Rose.
As Princess Leia said to Luke Skywalker, you're my only hope. So, over to you. Guys, we've been Ball at All Costs. He's been Brandon, Coach Brandon of Lambbeath Tigers, and we are out.